Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about Andrew Yang and the opportunity that the Chinese science fiction blockbuster that came out right in this year, 2019, affords to Andrew Yang and America, and it's specifically a very significant, very extended opportunity for specifically for collaboration, right? So what is this opportunity? Well, it's a huge opportunity, and it really is quite unique and special. Like, I really haven't seen anything like it before. All right, so let's talk about it. Okay, so one, I want to explain what the film The Wandering Earth is. The Wandering Earth is truly an incredible film. It's incredibly unique, right from the beginning. It's a Chinese science fiction blockbuster. That's pretty unusual, right? Its numbers are absolutely incredible. It made $700 million. About 95, I think maybe 98% of that was domestic. So in its release, this was virtually watched by virtually no one but the Chinese people. It is right now on Netflix, and it can be watched in English for free on Netflix. It's wonderful. It's a really, really wonderful film. Let me finish with the numbers, and then I'll talk about the quality of the film. So the numbers are absolutely incredible. Like, it's amazing, the numbers on this film. So $700 million. It cost $50 million to create, right? And I will tell you right now, for a budget of $50 million to make $700 million. And then additionally to that, this movie looks better than many $200-300 million from a CGI perspective. From what the visuals on the screen, and specifically from a CGI perspective, it definitely looks better than some American movies that were $150-300 million budget. It is truly a massive cinematic accomplishment. What was done on screen, truly incredible. Let's talk about the people a little bit. There's some major names attached to this. So Frank Guo is a very talented Chinese director. He did a fantastic job on this film. The story of the film, the story of The Wandering Earth, the whole movie is based on a short story by Lu Cixin. Lu Cixin is a very, very important Chinese science fiction writer. I'm going to talk about him separately because he's his own section, right? But this story is really wonderful. It's a fantastic story, and there is a really very special performance specifically by Wu Jing, right? Wu Jing plays a Chinese astronaut in this film. He knocks the role out of the park. He has this incredibly. By the way, there are spoilers for The Wandering Earth in this content. Wu Jing does just a really stellar job, and he has this real tearjerker monologue at the end of the movie, which made me cry, and that is not a small thing. I cried twice in this film, watching this film. That's not a small thing. I could say right now, this is the only international film I've ever watched that made me cry, because a lot of times I think there's a little bit of a distance when I watch international films. It can be challenging for me to understand their culture because I don't live there, and so when I'm watching an American film, I'm immediately immersed. I understand everything. I understand cadence of speech. I understand the speech. I understand nuance, all those kind of things. Whereas when I'm watching an international film, often I'm very aware that, like, I'm missing subtle cues from the actors that would have meaning within their culture that doesn't have meaning to me, right? So I don't watch a ton of international films. And the reason I watched this was for one reason. Lu Cixin, we'll talk about him in a minute. And so it's a fantastic film. It's really, so the quality of the film, it really is wonderful. It's got a fantastic story. The visuals in it are amazing. The acting in it is amazing. it's a great film. It's an absolutely incredible film, and it's an inspirational film. It's just a wonderful, wonderful film. I highly recommend to everybody watching. You should see Wandering Earth on Netflix immediately. It's wonderful, really, really wonderful film. All right, so let's talk a little bit about Liu Cixin, and basically, there's so much meaning for China in this film. Okay, so and for America, there's a huge opportunity for America that Andrew Yang is perfectly positioned to take advantage of, for Andrew Yang and for America, specifically when he becomes president, and I'll explain it. All right, so okay, so let's talk about Liu Cixin. So Liu Cixin is the author of the story The Wandering Earth that this is based off. And I'll give you the story right now. All right. So what's the story? The story is the Earth's atmosphere is heating up, right? And climate change. All right. The Earth's atmosphere is heating up, and so it needs to be cooled down, right? And rather than do what Americans are talking about right now, rather than conservation, the Chinese, with the Chinese, save the Earth in this movie. They're assisted by a couple other countries, but it's really the Chinese that save the Earth in this movie. They don't save the Earth through conservation. They save the Earth through innovation, right? So what they do is they hook up 10,000 Earth engines. They hook up, they build in the Earth engines on the Earth that will push the Earth out of its own orbit and then allow the Earth to wander the universe, going to places that are safer and more hospitable for the Earth than where it is currently heating up, right? So basically, and that's the key here, right? Listen to this, right? So Liu Cixin, right, brilliant sci-fi writer, has brought forward this idea that in order to save the Earth from climate change, we should do that through technology, not through scrimping and living like peasants, right? And and through conservation. This is incredible. This is a really, really incredible statement, right? And and it makes me really excited, right? Because the reality is, I think this pins down a really, really important opportunity for America to collaborate with China. And there aren't many of those, because we got a lot of beef. America has beef with China. China's got beef with America. They got double cheeseburger beef in both directions. We do not get along. And there's good reasons for us to not get along. The way we govern our people is fundamentally different, right? There's virtually nothing that's the same about how American government treats its people and how the Chinese government treats its people. They're diametrically opposed, right? And it's one of the last diametric oppositions in government that exists, right? Communism versus democracy, right? It's just, they're incredibly different, right? I got to say a little bit more about Liu Cixin before we move off of him. So the reason I watched this movie was Liu Cixin. I read Liu Cixin's his ultimate work, his opus, which is The Three-Body Problem. The Three-Body Problem is the third best science fiction novel ever written by anyone. The only two novels that beat it are, the number one science fiction novel that was ever written is Anathema by Neil Stephenson, and then Dune by Frank Herbert, and then it's The Three-Body Problem by Liu Cixin, right? These are all Hugo nominated and Hugo winner novels. These are world-class science fiction, right? So Liu Cixin is a genius. He wrote this book called The Three-Body Problem, and in that science fiction book, he talked about the dark forest problem, the idea that first contact by nature will always be dangerous to the Earth, right? That any alien force that we find is going to be fundamentally dangerous to the inhabitants of the Earth, right? It's a terribly frightening concept, is beautifully illustrated in the Three Body Problem, and Lou Cixin is an absolute genius. You should definitely read the Three Body Problem. It's really, really an incredible book, right? And it has major ramifications for understanding First Contact, and at a level that no other First Contact novel has ever even approached, right? And that's saying a lot, because I've read 50, maybe 100 First Contact books. I've read a lot of them, and it's a genre that is really special to me. I love First Contact books, and Lou Cixin approaches it in a more pragmatic, more intelligent manner than any author has ever approached it. It's an incredible book. All right, now, what is the opportunity that The Wandering Earth offers to Andrew Yang and the American people? All right, well, first of all, we desperately need a collaboration point between the Chinese and the Americans, right? This is a very, very needed reality, right? So why is that? Why do we need a collaboration point? Well, like I said, we have major points of opposition, right? But more and more, we are in opposition. Right now, we're in a trade war, right? We want that to remain a trade war. We want that trade war to go away and not turn into an actual war, right? But right now, the Chinese and the Americans, we are the big dogs on the planet. Nobody even comes close, right? We are, the Muhammad Ali and the Cassius Clay, right? This is the big fight, right? But we don't want this to turn into a fight. So anywhere where we agree, we need to collaborate, right? And guess what? We totally agree based on, so here's my supposition, right? When you look at this movie made $700 million. It's the second largest box office in Chinese history. The Chinese people looked at this film and goes, oh yeah, I co-signed this big time. Yeah, this is what I'm excited about, right? And this movie says something really, really important. It's saying, if you want to solve climate change, you don't do it through conservation. You do it through innovation, right? You do it with bigger, more powerful machines that burn more fuel. Bet. You just nailed what every red-blooded American wants, right? Here is the problem with climate change in America, and why it has, with climate change opponents in America, and why they have failed to capture the hearts and minds of Americans, right? So one, the climate change response in America has been absolutely dismal. It has been abysmal, right? Just terrible, right? And the reason why is the climate change, the people who really care about climate change in America, they're like, you need to conserve. You need to do this. We need to do this through conservation. And they're saying, Americans, you need to do less. You not need to drive trucks that are less big, trucks that are less vroom vroom, trucks that burn less fuel, right? You need to eat less meat. You need to you need to use less plastic, right? You're telling Americans, be less. You can't tell Americans, be less. We are always, always, always seeking to be more. We want bigger trucks. We want cooler cars that burn more fuel, right? Excuse me. Basically, you absolutely cannot do this. You can't tell Americans to be less. We're always seeking to be more, right? We have a model in America in technology: burn to earn. You burn and burn and burn and burn cash until you reach, a point where you actually begin to earn, right? Like, we have companies that don't even make profit for 10, 20 years and then turn huge profits, right? We are a bigger, more robust, more aggressive. We are totally aggro. America is like, no, we're not conserving jack, right? We are going to burn this, we're going to burn this place to the ground. We use and consume like crazy, right? Now, that's a problem unless you come up with a real solution. And Lou Cixin has a real solution, right? He's saying, this film, The Wandering Earth, is filled with gigantic Earth engines. They use massive fuel. Like, they crunch up entire mountains just to throw them into the furnace to burn and to push the Earth a little further away from the sun, right? It's incredible, right? And the whole movie is filled with trucks. The whole movie is filled with trucks, right? and not tiny trucks, absolutely massive trucks, right? So in America, people love Hummers, right? Hummer is the biggest, baddest, rolling coal, like super truck that you can get for that isn't a semi, right? That doesn't actually haul cargo, right? And Americans love Hummers, right? So in this movie, they have trucks in this movie, right? Where you could drive a Hummer into the interior. The trucks are that large. The trucks are like literally 10 times larger than trains. It's incredible. These trucks are huge, right? And the scale of this film is saying, if you want to solve a problem like climate change, you need to burn fuel, right? And in addition to that, you need to use technology aggressively, right? And the Chinese people just totally co-sign this. They're like, yep, we're in. I see it, right? And like, now, of course, this is a fiction. This is fiction. But when you're looking at a fiction movie that tells the story of how we solve climate change, right, that is pointing directly to the desires of the Chinese people. And frankly, it's pointing directly to the desire of the American people, right? There's no American with a Ford F-150 that wants to get rid of it. They want a Ford F-250. They want a Ford F-350, right? They want bigger and better, always, right? So that is why climate change response has failed utterly in America, because you can never, ever, ever tell an American to be less and think that's going to work out. It doesn't. We're always moving to be more, right? And so America, so at this point, I think if you look at The Wandering Earth and you look at the absolutely abysmal response to climate change conservation in America, you see that the Chinese and the Americans are on the same page, right? Let's solve this problem with technology, right? Now, frankly, we could strap Earth engines to the Earth and move it out of its orbit in order to cool it down. I'm down with that. Or you could do a million other technological solutions. Much more reasonable, I think, would be let's control the weather, right? That we can absolutely do this. We can build systems and build tools that allow us to control our environment so that we can continue to burn fuel, continue to consume at bigger and better and more awesome rates, right? And then live the way we've always wanted to live bigger than we've lived before, right? And then deal with the problems that consumption happens with technology. Shoot the trash into the sun, right? Make sure that we put iron into the seas so that they create more oxygen, right? Make sure that we use some type of technology to control where there is rain clouds and where there aren't. Use technology to suppress and break down storms before they actually coalesce, so that we are protecting the earth. Use technology to make sure that tsunamis are detected well ahead of time or are even broken up, right? Let's shoot lasers into the sea to stop tsunamis from coming through unabated, right? All kinds of different solutions, right? But the reality is none of them say be less. You can never, ever, ever tell an American to be less. And frankly, it looks like the same thing has happened to China. We've been seeing this for a while. China is turning into America at the level of the people, right? So one of the things that used to be true is China would just take all of America's slough work, right? Like Americans are like, I don't want to sit in a factory and stamp stuff, and stamp out a bunch of molds. Send that work to China, right? And basically we did, and China took that work. Guess what? Now China is having an incredibly difficult time absorbing that order. Like they can't even keep that order. They can't do that work right now because their own people are becoming scientists, are becoming knowledge workers, and so the work that America exported out to China is now being exported out from China to Africa. And the reason why is you can't get Chinese people to work at the super low wages that you used to be able to do that with, right? And the reason why is Chinese people are doing the same thing as Americans. They looked at Wandering Earth and go, yes, that is the solution to climate change. Bigger trucks, earth engines, technology that burns more fuel. And big old high five to you, China. I am high fiving you from across the world. Exactly. If you wanna solve climate change, You do it with technology. You do it with innovation. You do not do it with conservation. I say fie to conservation. I will never eat, like, you're never going to replace my cheeseburger with an Impossible Burger, and I will never, ever get a smaller car that burns electric, right? It's ridiculous. It's just, like, Americans ball out. We do not make ourselves smaller. It's just not the way. And guess what? The Chinese are like, yeah, exactly, America. Who wants to be small? Who wants to drive an electric car? It's ridiculous, right? Like, basically, if you want to solve a real climate change problem, you do it with American muscle, and frankly, there's an opportunity to do it with Chinese muscle, right? And this is exciting. This is a really exciting opportunity. Finally, the Chinese and the Americans are on the same page, right? So here's where Andrew Yang comes in. January 20th, 2021, Andrew Yang is president, right? He can reach right out to Xi Jinping, sorry if I got that wrong, and say, okay, hey, check it out. We're here. We're ready to do our thing. We are completely agree with you that we're going to solve climate change with a host of technical solutions, right? We don't need to actually, with a host of technical solutions, we don't need to do this through conservation. We don't need to tell people anymore, be less, because it's un-American, and frankly, it's un-Chinese, right? Like, so, and that's great. It's really good that we're finally on the same page. So this is a huge opportunity for Andrew Yang to sweep in and build collaboration where collaboration has not existed previously. And that is a massive opportunity, right? Now, here's the kicker. Andrew Yang cannot talk about any of this in the election. And the reason why is I know there would be a ton of granola eating, like Subaru driving, Volvo driving, like yoga practicing Democrats who would just be appalled at this, right? So basically, this has to be something that he does in the first 100 days, would be start the process for this type of true climate change solution, right? And the reality is he would need to do this through governing, right? He can't talk to the people. The Republicans are going to be all over this. They're going to be like, "Oh yeah, absolutely. You want to solve climate change by burning more fuel? You got it. Let's do it." Right? And it's awesome. Like, that's an awesome solution, right? But the Democrats would not be cool with this, right? However, when you elect a president, invariably there are going to be things that president's like, "Hey, I'm a genius. I have wisdom you don't have. I'm going to do what you asked me to do on 9 out of 10 issues, but on one issue, I'm going to use my intelligence that's higher than yours and my wisdom that's higher than yours." And by the way, I will say, I think Andrew Yang is a more intelligent, more wise person than me, right? And the vast majority of Americans, right? And say, "Hey, I'm taking us in a new direction." And so he's going to have to take the Democrats in a direction they didn't expect, and that many of them, I would say many of them didn't really want, right? But that's just it. Like, I'm not a big super fan of UBI, right? But I'm still an absolute super fan of Andrew Yang. When you look at a candidate, you have to see the full candidate, right? And so this is a huge opportunity for Andrew Yang to drop in a collaborative solution that would allow us to collaborate with the Chinese for 10 to 20 to maybe 50 years, right? And build mega solutions that would actually solve climate change, rather than, oh, throw your cup into the recycling bin. Oh, guess what? China doesn't buy our recycling bins anymore, and it's all going in the same hole again. Oh no! Right? Like, come on. Like, that's why people have been so frustrated with climate change conservationists. Is their solutions are ridiculous. They don't really help. Right? They're like, it's throwing deck chairs off the Titanic, right? You want to solve climate change, strap Earth engines on and let's jet out a little bit so that we're in a cooler position, right? That's just one solution. There's 100 different technological solutions. Let's use what we're good at, stop doing conservation, and do innovation. And Andrew Yang can bring us to a collaboration point with China. That's the way of the future. That's the way of peace with China, right? And Andrew Yang could get us there. That's my opinion. What do you think? please let me know in the comments below. I would really love that. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful day.